What is the fastest way a room of happy people turns sour you've witnessed? Dude decided to pop the question to his girlfriend at a work holiday party. She said no. Both parties began to cry inconsolably. All the guys in the room tried to cheer up the guy with their tales of woe. All the women in the room took the woman aside and did whatever the female version of the above was. Went from a fairly happy event to a complete disaster within minutes. Plus side. While all of this tea was going down, no one was hitting the buffet, so I cleaned the FCK up. Why the FCK do people do public proposals when they are not 100% certain of an affirmative answer? That said, proposing at a work party wouldn't really be appropriate at the best of times. Maybe if you work somewhere really casual and closely knit. Bride throwing up on herself in the dance floor during the first dance. She tried to hold it back, but the groom just pointed her towards the dance floor and she let her rip. Was impressive. Similar story. Bride and groom plus the 6-person wedding party finished a handle of Fireball after the ceremony and before coming into the reception. Their introduction song was a swing dance song, and the groom tries to swing her under and between his legs. She had her head thrown back and smacked the back of her head on the ground, knocking her unconscious for 5 minutes. To top it off, he stepped on her skirt before he swung her, ripping a huge tear in her dress. People started leaving before and after dinner began. This is more of a mild story but still very uncomfortable. It was at work during break. A whole bunch of us were outside smoking. One guy asks my co-worker if he has any kids. Says that he likes to dress up as Santa for the young ones. So my co-worker tells him I have a daughter that just turned 20. And he replied with, well, she can definitely come sit on my lap. The silence after that sentence was so painful. Everyone ended up going back inside after that. It was super awkward. In Portugal during the World Cup. Get there early to find a street bar in the center with a big screen. Place is soon packed. England start really well and everyone is singing and laughing. All of a sudden the bar up the road erupts into massive cheers. Lots of people go out into the road to see. Apparently someone just dropped an entire tray of drinks. We all laugh and go back to watching the game. 10 seconds later England score. Our bar erupts and we spill into the street. The bar up the road is deadly silent now. Weird. The game starts again and the bar up the road starts shouting again. Nothing in the game. What's going on? People look up the road again. Can't quite work it out. Then a really bad tackle goes in and the penny finally drops. Our bar's TV is the only one using satellite and all the other bars have cable. Our feed is about 20 seconds behind everywhere else. Every exciting moment is audible about 20 seconds before we get to see it. Have never seen a bar empty so fast in all my life. Was bartending on one of our restaurant's busiest days. Place was packed and man and a boy of about 9 couldn't stop wrestling and giggling. The man about 30 years old started repeatedly yelling, "I'm gonna grab your penis." Yeah, the whole place dropped dead silent. Mother grabs the kid and says they need to chill out. That sounds like a what would you do show moment. I don't believe in guilty pleasures. I think if it brings you pleasure there's no need to feel guilty about it. That said, if I did have one it would be what would you do? Double quote. In grad school we were gathered in a room to hear about how the last term of classes in the program was going to be cut due to a new law regarding educator requirements for the state. Everyone was stoked because it was gonna save us like $5,000-8,000. Then they told us that due to state budget cuts, our total tuition was going to double. Sounds about right. So sad. I was on a Chicago to NY flight. We all get on the plane, but were delayed taking off due to a heavy storm going on. About 20 minutes in, everybody was still pretty calm until the pilot announces they're working on getting our baggage loaded, because it's been sitting on the tarmac this entire time. The entire plane looks out and sees all our luggage just sitting there in the pouring rain uncovered, and starts freaking out. I'm calling it someone's computer got ruined. 100%. Luckily mine was carry on. But I was just coming back from Japan, and all the things I bought were in a duffel bag that got ruined. One day at work we had an hour meeting followed by a planned pizza party as a reward for meeting some safety goal. They'd been telling us all week not to worry about food because they were getting pizza. Well, after the meeting we're sitting around waiting for the pizza to get there when our boss comes in and tells us there was a failure of communication and no one actually ordered the pizza. If you want to see 50 factory workers go from excited to murder ready in less than a second, that's what you tell them. I worked for a company that sent a global email congratulating us all for working hard and meeting a sales goal. So there would be free pizza to celebrate. Followed up by a correction. There would be free pizza for management. Not exactly a room. But our plane landed home after my company spent a year in Iraq. Our company commander previously told us to tell our families that they shouldn't come out to the tarmac to welcome us back because it would be a F-King circus and you'll just see them later anyway. Stepping off the plane. Who are the first and only people we see? Our F-King commander's wife. 3 kids. Parents. Grandparents. Brothers. And numerous cousins, friends. Was on a team, about 15 people, for a special project for a regional internet service provider. During the bi-weekly team meeting the manager was super pumped about how far ahead of schedule we were due to some new processes we came up with. After about 20 minutes of attaboys, the manager concluded with telling us all we were being laid off in the same tone of voice she used for the whole meeting, issuing a bunch of praise. Most of us awkwardly laughed for a couple seconds thinking she was joking. She was not. Family gathering was going great until the host realized she was missing thousands of dollars worth of jewelry. She started accusing everyone of being thieves until her husband said he put it away without telling her. Was the host mortified? Did she apologize or did the party just end? Lol, imagine if she kept up the act. Reminds me of Batman Begins. I'll want to thank you all for coming here tonight and drinking all of my booze. No. Really. There's a thing about being away that you're never short of a few freeloaders. Like yourselves to fill up your mansion with. So here's to you people. Thank you. To all of you. All of you phonies. All of you two-faced friends, you sycophantic suck-ups who smile through your teeth at me, please. Leave me in peace. Please go. Stop smiling. It's not a joke. Please leave. Double quote. Bad snowstorm started about 4 AM a few years ago. My co-workers and I were texting each other thinking no way would they make us come into our job today, we are non-essential workers. We're all home waiting for the email to go out regarding whether or not our boss would give us the day off. Email finally goes out around 7:30 AM saying that we would have a shorter day but everyone must show up for work by 9. So I laid up, cleaned off my car, shoveled out of my parking spot and headed to work on very precarious roads. I got to work on time and was greeted by my co-workers who were all pretty happy just to not have gotten into an accident on the way over. All of the clients and meetings had been cancelled, so there was a party-like atmosphere. Just as we were talking about playing charades, we get another email from the boss saying because road conditions were so bad they were closing the agency after all and everyone had to go home. This was 20 minutes after we had all gotten there. I have never seen 20+ people all scream "Are you f***ing kidding me" at the same time before. It was absurd and everyone was pissed. Movie theater. Parents and their kids went to go watch Princess and the Frog movie and another movie came up with 2 people f***ing in a closet. Edit. I have no idea what the movie was. Sorry guys and gals. The only thing I remember is a guy f***ing his co-worker on top of a table or scanner printer with his pants down. You are able to see his bare ass. This was in 2009, so if anyone knows what movie it might be, please let me know because I am actually curious as well. Edit. So I went over the movies people commented and wanted seems to be the closest to it. The movie theater does show older movies sometimes, so I'm guessing they still had the wanted film in their inventory. Kinda sucks I can't remember more. But then again it was 10 years ago. Also, wowzer, I didn't expect this comment to receive this much upvotes. Thank you. The president of our company got completely plastered at our Christmas party. His speech started off funny because he was slurring hard and he was playing on it. Then he started talking about how he came from nothing and became something. Then he proceeded to tell us how if it wasn't for us working so hard and keeping our clients happy, he wouldn't have been able to accomplish building his mega mansion for him and his family. Nor would he have been able to afford his new Benz. Awkward muttering. Followed by him directing us to drink up and enjoy. Because due to budget cuts, the future Christmas party bonus budget is cancelled from here on out. Many of my co-workers relied on that bonus. No one was impressed. Except for one person. The rest of us quit within the first few months into the new year. Sounds like the owner MD from my spouse's last job. News cars every few months. Paying his kids a salary for doing nothing. Flushing cash from the business for personal home improvements. They had 100 employees tops. They all worked like dogs. Their Christmas party? Held in the office where everyone had to bring in food to share. Record profits? Ha, thanks for the work, suckers. Check out my kid's new car. Ended up losing lots of skilled workers to a rival company. Hope he shits a hedgehog. Back in high school, there was a classmate of mine whose father had died. The circumstances of his death were tragic enough. He died the same day my classmate was born. That's all of the school knew about it. One day we were messing around. Nothing too rowdy. Just cracking dumb jokes the way 15-year kids do. And our French teacher singled him out and said, "Your father would be so disappointed by your behavior." Double quote. The class became completely quiet. My classmate froze staring at the teacher in utter disbelief. Then every single one of us started shouting at the teacher. She even went to get the principal. Which turned out to be counterproductive for her. Because we were the best class of our school. And the principal didn't doubt our word for a second. This story took place my freshman year of high school. I was in an extremely small 5th period theater course with maybe about 10 or 15 other people in it. We were a very well behaved class that acted more like a family than anything else. It was fun. However, one day we got a substitute teacher who I'll call D. D was old. She had short white hair, permanent scowl, and always wore a jacket that looked like a duster. That particular day she was angry and you could tell. She had a difficult time with the computer playing the movie, so she was yelling, fussing, and blaming her ignorance on us. In our class we had several tech-savvy people, but she refused all help because we were too risky. Eventually she gets it to work, giving us the chance to ignore her. Around 10 minutes into the film someone realized she hasn't said anything in a while, so they look over and see her eyes opened. Still. And unresponsive. They turn to the rest of the class, who were still focused on the movie, and alerts them. Everyone begins to freak out. People are taking flash pictures of her. Waving. Hecked everything to get her to respond. Eventually she woke up. Yelled at us. Then went back to sleep with her eyes open once more. It was the freakiest situation ever, but the good news is that I never saw that sub working for my school again. We were discussing road safety with the headmaster. One of the pupils pointed out that there had been a car crash right in front of her just as she had been about to step out onto the road earlier that week, which had been really scary. The headmaster laughed and asked her what she was wearing and if it had been her fault. Absolute silence for 10 seconds as he squirmed and then mumbled, "I mean, were you wearing a ball gown?" Or, as if that had been what he'd meant. Pathetic and excruciating. A 50-year-old man to a teenage girl. My friend used to work for a company that has always promised our IT department a trip to Hawaii for working through a couple of rough years without pay raise, and on the flip side we won't get any personnel cut. It was a verbal promise that once we are back to profitable, the IT department would get all expense paid trip. Back around October of 2015. They were gathered in the largest meeting room for a meeting with the president. There were snacks, drinks, pizza, etc. It was assumed that it was a celebration for a good year and they'd get the promised trip. It was a mass layoff since IT has been outsourced. All credentials were locked during the meeting and everyone was asked to leave the premise right after the meeting. I got one for you. Was living with a friend and his fiancée. We were all 1 minute watching The Walking Dead. The next minute total chaos. My friend and his fiancée were fighting. But not yelling. Just bickering a little. We were all watching TV when she stormed out of the room. No one thought anything of it. Maybe she got a drink. Or went for a walk. Then we heard it. The sound of a gun. She had shot herself in the temple in the kitchen. 1 minute we're enjoying The Walking Dead. The next minute we're living in a crime scene. My wife and I went to go see a comedy show. About halfway in, the comedian seemed particularly annoyed with one woman in the crowd because she kept looking at her phone instead of paying attention to him. At some point he essentially stops the entire show and starts to pick on her instead. It started out simple enough. Look at this woman. Her life is so important. Blah. 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 Harmless enough at first and the crowd is on his side. At some point she decides to defend herself and starts jabbing back. Calling him a hack or whatever. Then he escalates his attacks by calling her a f-king bitch. It was so awkward that the entire audience went quiet. Even worse. Some people in the audience started taking her side. Got real ugly and he never really recovered. The comedian apologized profusely and said he was out of line. But it was too late. Several groups of people outright walked out. We stayed until the end but it was really uncomfortable. Public speaking class. I was the instructor. Student giving a speech on 9/11. He is failing miserably so he decides to liven things up with a few 9/11 jokes. Girl in the back gasps and then starts sobbing. Her aunt was a flight attendant on one of the planes. I'm always really surprised by the amount of people related to victims. For 3,000 victims it seems like everyone knows someone directly related to a victim. I think it was because it happened to the World Trade Tower, the Pentagon, and a few cross-country flights. The odds that people in those circumstances would have connections all over the country, and generally be pretty worldly, so to speak, just seem higher. If the attacks had targeted 3,000 people in rural Appalachia instead, I'm sure that effect would be much diminished. In high school I had a substitute teacher in my science class for 4 days in a row. When Friday rolled around there were tons of rumors ranging from Mono to her getting arrested. But when we got to class that Friday she took about 10 minutes of class time to set the record straight. In front of about 30 kids in that class and probably 150 in total throughout the day. She explained that she had a late-term miscarriage. I've never seen a classroom go from curiosity to a mix of awkwardness and concern that quickly in my entire academic career. It was a party for the cast of a musical I was in during my senior year. We were all having a great time and we decided to watch a video of the performance that the host's mom managed to record. She had permission to record the show. In the middle of the recording, you could hear the host's mom whispering while recording. It was obvious she wasn't aware the phone picked up her voice. She was talking about how her son deserved the leading role, not the guy who was actually cast. She was basically heckling his every move during the show. The party ended pretty quickly after that. The poor lead guy was really hurt. He wanted to go to school for theater but that event really discouraged him. Once at my work my boss arranged a pint, pizza and paint night. The company no budget for overtime so the bosses promised us that they would buy us booze and pizzas to encourage us to paint the giant store with them. So a big group of us volunteered just to get there and the manager left early, promising the pizza and beer would be along shortly. It didn't. In 2007 Mars Volta played at White River Amphitheater. They got through about 4 songs and then quit in a rage on stage. Turns out the guitarist was having speaker issues and someone threw a bottle of piss on him. He smashes his guitar on the speakers and walks off mid-song. The lead singer says this is what you get when you build an amphitheater on Indian burial ground. I'll give $10,000 to anyone who brings me the head of the Mothurfka that threw piss on us. Security ran out to escort them off and we had a full hour-and-a-half wait till our HCP came out. That tea was sour. Also, this is all available to watch on YouTube. My company had a pizza party meeting for a particular department. The scuttlebutt was it was a thank you for a third quarter project completion. The department of 35 people were excited for the Atta boys and the pizza. After the lunch the shoe dropped. They were all being laid off because even though they finished the project on time, for this long time customer, the customer had signed a contract with another company and were leaving. Unbelievable crap move by management. Reading these other comments. Pizza seems to be the common way to give bad news to employees. Not a room, but a stadium. Michigan Stadium with roughly 110,000 cheering their butts off on the verge of beating Michigan State for the first time in Lord knows how long. All we had to do is get a clean punt off and we win, but of course we muffed the punt. MSU recovers and takes it and scores for the win as the 110k people once going ballistic with excitement turned to dead silence. While I'm still bitter, I'm amazed I got to witness such a contrast. Not my story, but a friend of mine was attending a Christian Pentecostal summer camp a few years ago with some high school students and other adult leaders. For anyone who is unfamiliar with Pentecostal youth camps, the evening church services can get pretty lively and charged with emotion. People being slain in the spirit, speaking in tongues, lots of worship and confessing sins, that sort of thing. There were probably a couple hundred students, so things may have gotten chaotic. Anyway, my friend and one of the other adult leaders get pulled on stage to confess sins to the audience. Not sure who thought this was a good idea, but maybe it wasn't planned. And the other adult leader, a nice guy in his 20s, newly married, confesses to the packed auditorium of high schoolers hyped up on Jesus that he used to have sex with his dog. The evening service pretty much ended after that. I was in a local independently run bookshop in my hometown and it was full of people happily searching the labyrinth of books. And the owner was taking to one particular shopper about World War II history books. They seemed to be having a proper good chinwag and it was kind of obvious that most of the other shoppers were tuned into their conversation. After all, it was a very interesting talk they were having about history. Right up until the shopper said something along the lines of, "You know, there's actually a lot of evidence to suggest that the Holocaust didn't exactly happen." The tension in that room went up so damn quick I could smell it. It felt like we were all walking underwater. Then the shop owner F-King exploded and threw the guy out of the shop. We all perused the shelves in silence. 50th anniversary for my old rugby club. People were flying in from all around the world. 150 plus people ranging from late teens to 70s. We went on a big pub crawl, combined with my dad's 60th birthday. The night before the big dinner, one of the old boys fell over outside the local pub, hit his head on the concrete and was knocked out. Ambulance was called and we helped him get into it. Explained what happened to the medics and off he went with his brother to the hospital. We laughed it off and went back to drinking. By far not the first time a player has gone to hospital after a night out. The night after at the big suit and tie dinner, one of the old boys was wondering where him and his brother were. So he called the brother and asked if he was okay. He wasn't. He had a brain aneurysm and had little to no chance of surviving. A room full of 150 plus tough as nails men and women went from having the time of their life to pretty much dead silent. He died 4 days after. Didn't witness it personally but heard about it and the aftermath. Back in 2006 an army unit was being extended beyond its original 12-month deployment to Iraq. This was the first extension for the surgeon before it became common. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld traveled to the unit's home base to address the families of the soldiers and let them know why these soldiers weren't coming home and the few that had made it home were having to turn around and go back. It wasn't a horribly happy crowd to start with, but they were willing to hear him out and be respectful. Apparently he came in incredibly conceited about the whole situation and basically made a comment along the lines of "they are soldiers and will do what they are told and like it." He was completely lacking in empathy or understanding and just expected everyone to accept and support the decision. This comment and demeanor immediately turned the crowd hostile and the town hall was quickly cancelled and Rumsfeld had to be escorted out by his security detail. So one day weather was getting bad and staff working were asking about it and if we were closing early. They said they were monitoring the weather and so far nothing. Come time for some people to leave and they had to come back inside because the snow felt high and rough and they couldn't get out of the parking lot. I'm freaking out cause I still haven't left. So I'll leave. Lucky I have an SUV so I'm able to leave. I get home and an hour later supervisor is calling me to come into work because others can't make it. I tell him no and I'll show up tomorrow at my regular time. When others show up we find out staff have been working over 24 hours because they couldn't leave and the management couldn't have the phones go unanswered. I worked at a company's internal help desk. About 10 people had to stay.